They are having the CPAC meeting. This is where they can really let their hair down, the conservatives. But I don't even know if it's fair to call it conservatism anymore. It seems to be,
It's
I'd
something
suggest, an
else.
extremism. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, where you're taking certain traditional conservative values. I mean, the notions of conservative ideologies have traditionally, over the last decades, included a disposition toward Russia that has been hostile. I mean, to call it adversarial is to be polite. I mean, that you view Russia as ruled by an authoritarian, human rights are taken away. And the reality is that life in Russia is grim compared to the freedoms and liberties that we are enjoying here in the USA. Has always been the kind of thinking that they have done. But that's changed now. I mean, now we are on Russia's side, and Ukraine is our bitch, who we have spent so much taxpayer money on that we want to exact from them that which we would normally exact from an adversary. Reparations, in a way. We want mineral rights to pay back the sacrifice financially that we have made as a nation. This is what Trump wants and has articulated he's wanted in these demands that have been forwarded to Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. And so you've also, in addition to calling the president of Ukraine a dictator, to calling him out for being unpopular, saying that he has 4% approval, when of course we know that he's got like 54% approval, and a higher approval than Donald Trump has. But more to the point, this is a traditional ally of America, even though not a formal NATO member. This was certainly a proxy war. And yet we find ourselves in an instant having flipped sides as a nation, and now, as I say, browbeating our ally. And that was just one of the things that's come up in the agenda that has been visited at CPAC. And it's against the DOGE cleanup of government, the elimination of waste, fraud, and abuse, which, as we've said on the show, hasn't been done. What's been done is a reckless dismantling of major governmental institutions and departments, many of which were quite efficient already. If you're looking for inefficiencies, you don't go to the IRS and you don't go to USAID. And you, in fact, in going to the IRS, are hobbling one of the few institutions in Washington that generates immense revenue for you. So if you're looking to bring in money, they are more than bringing in their salaries. Spencer Jaffe, CPAC is too extreme, with a super chat. Thank you. Yeah, so anyway, to the point, we know that there's a fraud to a Doge. There's not only a fraud, but there's a danger. I mean, we've let these Dogians go into the government, and they have truly taken the data, the private data of Americans secured in government computers. Now, I think Americans, like most people on Earth, have hit the terms and conditions and agreement clauses in any number of apps to already surrender a lot of information, but that's the prerogative of Americans to give up. The government, there's a presumption of security that hasn't been honored. And Musk and his people have no clearance and no green light to do this. You didn't vote them in, and nobody in America voted them in. Now, I get it. Musk was very prominent in the Trump building empire that he was suggesting was going to come to Washington. But the notion that you would just begin firing people and decapitating entire agencies, that was certainly not part of it. There's absolutely a chaotic recklessness to what Musk is doing that is inexcusable. You could, if you wanted, have cleared Musk and his Muskian henchmen. You could have cleared them in some way that would suggest that they get formal clearance at the federal level. That is to say, background checks, confirmation processes, however you want to do it. That's not how it was done. Within hours of having been elected, you have this guy who is shown on stage here at CPAC with dark glasses and a dark hat and a black overcoat. I'm just describing it for people who are listening on the podcast, being presented with a chainsaw on stage. And then he revs up the chainsaw, holds it high because he is taking a chainsaw to government. Now, he would say he's taking a chainsaw to government waste, but that's not what's happening. As we've learned, he's fired and discharged from government critical people who are involved in critical aspects of government. The nuclear maintenance people are associated, when I say maintenance, I mean maintaining our nuclear arsenal in the ways that it has to be maintained. Maintenance people makes it sound like they're, people who are cleaning up around the nuke missiles. I mean, maintaining the structure around the nuclear weaponry that is so much a part of American military security. Those people were let go. I mean, how could you? It's indefensible.
And then they're like, "Whoops."
Yeah. Then they try
we're trying to get them all back.
Reach them.
Aren't we also trying to get back the people that were dealing day to day with bird flu?
Well, we're trying to get back the people who are dealing. You need a scorecard just on this, like who you fired and trying to get back. People who are dealing day to day with bird flu, people who are charged with maintaining our nuclear arsenal, and now Forest Service people who were discharged as well, who now they're trying to pull back because they were really swinging the axe at the U.S. Forest Service. So those are the headlines. I mean, there are others as well that they're trying to bring back into government. But remember, they came in so hot and wielding that chainsaw so recklessly that they stopped all this medical research in its tracks. I mean, even as Alzheimer's is this horrible scourge on the senior community and on families worldwide, but domestically, it is a crippling illness to deal with, to watch loved ones compromised by Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. And we all have an interest in a breakthrough in some kind of therapy, even modest therapy when it comes to Alzheimer's research. Well, a lot of that research, and apparently we're right on the verge of maybe potentially making some breakthroughs, it was stopped. It was stopped instantly, as was cancer research, as was virology research. It extended across the board at CDC, at NIH. It's outrageous. So somehow they're recasting this recklessness as, triumphant. That's why he goes to CPAC and he wields this chainsaw. I'm going to show you the CPAC.
In a big celebratory manner. And also, just as the family member of someone who is a government employee who is they're stressed out. They don't know what's going to happen next. They don't know if their livelihood is going to be preserved or not, if they're going to have the pension that they were promised or not. Their livelihoods thrown into chaos, and there's a lot of stress. To see him dancing around and celebrating with a chainsaw, it's cruel and demoralizing. It would be like if you got called in, when KGO went under and everyone got called in around the conference table and they said, okay, well, the station is going away and here's all your manila envelopes. If they then, brought in a band to march around and celebrate everyone's departure, it's really not nice.
Yeah. That's actually a great parallel. I would also suggest that a lot of their policies are deliberately cruel. I mean, Bannon has talked about this. I want to make it so these people don't want to come to work. Those are exactly the words that Bannon used. And that may be a direct quote. I watched a lot of the Bannon stuff. I'm talking about the Bannon stuff from his podcast. And he said, we're going to get rid of these people. We're getting rid of the administrative state. And again, waste, fraud, and abuse, we all agree it needs to go. But what's happening now is insanity. It's utter insanity. It's total recklessness. And the notion that a bunch of 26-year-olds are going to go in there and jack all of this secure data, they have it. And now Musk, and who the F is Musk? He gets into a spat with Donald Trump. He can take all that data and dump it anywhere. Or he can just, even if he doesn't get in a spat with Donald Trump, he can just sell it off in bits and pieces. I mean, there is no governor on Elon Musk. He has all the leverage.
It's so
And
scary.
I don't think there will be a spat between Trump and Musk because they are very much in need of each other. Donald Trump is the more popular of the two. And so wrapped in this Trumpian shell, Musk can do all of his dirty work, which he is doing, and it's designed to give him more and more power. It's an extraordinary thing that they've done this in 30 days. This is a destruction on the level, I would suggest, we've never seen. And it's all been done in 30 days. And it's not done. It's not over. So I wanted to show some CPAC stuff. Albert, give me the CPAC wrap package, if you would, please. This is what's going on.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
Oh, is this where you, I'm sorry, yeah. Mark, let me start where I know I can start. This is me micromanaging the video. All right. Sorry, Albert. I will shut up. All right. And you will run the video from where you want to run it. I will not ask you to run it from any particular location. And you'll run it in 3, 2, 1, and.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
Elon Musk wielding a chainsaw in Washington, boasting about slashing the size of the federal government.
I am become meme.
The man in charge of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, getting a hero's welcome at a conservative conference hours after the IRS began firing some 6,000 workers.
I'm proud of the work. Sad to leave my colleagues.
This now former IRS worker says he's been fired even though he was brought in to streamline data and automation at the agency. Although officials insist none of the layoffs directly affects the processing of tax returns, there is concern the cuts could lead to delays, potentially affecting refunds.
You can only imagine with so many people being let go and so much kind of like information and potential being lost, people will probably expect some disturbances.
But Elon Musk suggesting Americans could get another check from the government.
The spoils of battle,
Pitching a $5,000 dividend for taxpayers funded by the cuts made by his Doge group.
Stop for a second, if you would, Albert. I want to make a point, 2 points, really. One is this is an effective thing. There's a quality of entertainment on the level of WWE that's going on. These guys come in, he comes in with a chainsaw. You look at him, he's got the dark glasses, dark outfit, the hat, the black hat. There is a quality of theater that they're very good at. And you'll remember that the Biden administration, not theatrical, didn't really peacock about things. You had a guy and the president who actually looked fragile, weak, from a standpoint of just publicity. He was bad for the brand, These guys, they're all about representing the brand in a strong way, in a theatrical way, and that's why he comes in with the chainsaw. Now, point number 2. So what he's pointing out here, the $5,000 checks, this is the way to buy off the American public. I understand that people, when Sleepy Joe Biden, who were these people who were in MAGA-land who used to refer to Joe Biden as Sleepy Joe Biden, when he was sending those checks out, the COVID relief checks, et cetera, they talked about how inflationary it was. They talked about the detriment, essentially, associated with these checks. When Donald Trump sent the checks out during his first term, he actually made sure, you'll remember, that his name was attached to all the checks. It actually held up the dispersal of those checks by several days because he wanted to make sure that the Trump name was attached. And that took several days to actually add another piece of paper, it was, with the checks that were sent out. He wanted his name on the checks. They couldn't do that at the Treasury. So they added this second piece of paper. Now let's cut to this. They want to put in $5,000 checks. They're talking about this. And it's a way to buy you off. It's a way to buy off the American public. And the remarkable thing is that this definitively inflationary move is being talked about within the Trump administration as though it won't affect inflation at all. It's absurd. How could you send $5,000 to every American? Again, this is, I don't know where you're getting this money, but he's claiming that he's found this money and this is the spoils of victory is what he's calling it. It's absurd. You don't have it. But if you do send it, it'll be wildly inflationary, along with the tariffs that'll be wildly inflationary and all the other half-baked economic schemes that Trump is going to sell. But this is a way to buy off the criticism that you might get from the American public. Back to it, Albert. Sorry for the interruption. Go ahead.
And so it sounds like, that's something we're going to do.
He's also shaking off accusations that he's a Russian asset following reports last year that he'd been in contact with Vladimir Putin.
People sometimes
to end this war.
say like, yeah. I'm a bought asset of Putin. Yeah. I'm like, he can't afford me.
Yeah.
It comes as the Trump administration appears to turn toward Russia while calling Ukrainian President Zelensky a dictator. And in a new move, the administration objected to language in a G7 document that refers to Russia as the aggressor in the Ukraine war, even some Republicans voicing concern at this apparent turn toward Putin.
This man is a cancer and the greatest threat to democracy in my lifetime. The strength of our alliances are on the line, and the future of democracy in the world is on the line if we do anything less than defeat Vladimir Putin.
Officials say Trump is frustrated with Zelensky because he rejected Trump's offer to settle war debts by handing over half the country's mineral resources to the U.S. Officials say Zelensky's team is working on a different offer regarding how to share those minerals.
That's what I was talking about when I said that. I mean, we're actually, exacting reparations, which is what you would do with a defeated foe. We're exacting those from our ally that we've been supporting for the last few years. It's insanity with these mineral rights. Now, you can put it in the insane column along with the fact that you are negotiating a peace agreement and one party that's involved. There are only two parties involved in this dispute, and one of the parties is not invited to the peace negotiations. It's absurd. If you, again, it's carving up Europe after World War II. It's the audacity is extraordinary. But we're not done at CPAC, I should say. CPAC visited, and they really let their hair down. This is we can really just let it ride. Steve Bannon visited CPAC, and he gives, and a lot of his stuff, and as I said, I've watched a bunch of it, a lot of his stuff is two things, I would say. One, it's really militaristic. It's almost like listening to a general speak to enlisted men before battle. He does a lot of that. He loves to sort of employ the verbiage and attitude of a commander, of speaking to the troops. And the second thing, and this is the thing that if you spend time around Bannon, meaning watch his stuff, he cloaks a lot of his stuff in historical reference and what can almost masquerade, frankly, as a kind of erudition. Like he seems as though he knows a lot.
Well, thank you for that.
And that can conceal really despotic and seriously populist in a bad way plans that he has for America and the world. Play us a little bit of, this is Bannon at CPAC.
The hardest, toughest days are ahead, folks, but you know what? Riyadh, Berlin, Beijing, Moscow, the city of London, right here. This is not beatable. You can't, the only way we lose is if we quit. The only way we don't have victory if we surrender. The only way that they win is we retreat. And we're not going to retreat. We're not going to surrender. We're not going to quit. Fight, fight, fight. Amen. God bless you. You are amazing.
Here comes the Nazi salute.
You've honored every patriot in this country, every patriot grave. You've honored them through your agency. This is all you.
Here comes a regular salute. And he did the one, but here, keep it going. There it is. There you go with the Nazi salute. Here comes another one. There it is. Yeah, he's fist in the air. Yeah, fight, 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 he's saying. I counted 3 Nazi salutes. And now they're yelling Trump, 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 Trump. That's what they're yelling in the hall as Bannon walks off. And so the gesture that alludes to this Nazi ideology was not unnoticed, even by those who the right in this country seems to be sidling up to in Europe. And Musk himself backing a lot of these far-right political parties in Germany and in France. And the leader of a far-right political party in France saying he is not going to address, as planned, the CPAC conference. This is after Steve Bannon appeared to give a Nazi salute to the forum yesterday. Yeah. Quote, I've been invited, we're showing it to you again so you can see it. I had been invited, there it is, to make a speech on the links. And again, this is just one of the, he did it 3 times. You can just let it roll and you'll be able to see it. I had been invited to make a speech on the links between the United States and France, as well as the recent electoral dynamic of patriot parties in Europe, said Jordan Bardella, the leader of France's national rally. Yesterday, while I was not present in the room, one of the speakers, out of provocation, allowed himself a gesture alluding to Nazi ideology, he says. I, therefore, took the immediate decision to cancel my speech that had been scheduled for this afternoon. Bannon says that his gesture was a wave and reacted to Bardella's cancellation by saying the French politician is, quote, unfit to lead France. So you go from being an invited speaker to being characterized as someone unfit to lead France. And Bannon says he's a little boy, not a man, and only men or women of strength can lead France. That's your update on CPAC, a place where awful things are hatched and applauded. Again, the conservatism of the past is nowhere in evidence, really nowhere in evidence.
It's like people have forgotten.
To see this country flip to being so much in the bosom of Russia now is an extraordinary thing to see. And it happened like in 90 minutes. I mean, it was, they're just still clearing all of the red, white, and blue off the inaugural podium. And we're already crawling up Vladimir Putin's backside. And I would say more and more, given the complete surrender that Donald Trump has provided Vladimir Putin, I'd say that there's more going on here. American interests aren't well served by doing this. Now, you know, I'll give you one thing that from a tech bro standpoint or an industrial kind of capitalist standpoint, you might see, well, I can see opportunity there. It's if Russia can be opened up to American markets. You know what I mean? If this is a new consumer base that can be exploited, it's being talked about that way. That's why I mentioned it. That's not that's not an idea original to me. I mean, they've spoken of this great potential marketplace for American goods, et cetera. I mean, there is that, I suppose. But apart from that, I mean, this is an authoritarian regime that backs other authoritarian regimes. It has been an adversary, an enemy of the West since Putin took power. They have backed terrorism. They are behind client states in the Middle East. Now, Syria was one of them. Syria has fallen. I really don't see how you draw the connective tissue between Putin and Trump unless there's some compromise or something. I don't get it otherwise. It's too big a pivot. It just doesn't make sense. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.